You are listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us on bringjoyforward.com and join us in our community group on Facebook. We now take you to the episode. Thank you for joining us. Hello, and welcome to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. I am Shannon Dias with Imaginative Media. I am joined by Shannon Brown from Open Door Healing and Shaman Mystical Crow from Sacred Temple Wellness. And today's episode, we are going to chat with you about spirit, connecting to spirit, putting up some boundaries and things like that, just in general. So we're going to try to touch on the person, for the person who is just kind of new, maybe some things are happening, you're not sure, and some reminders for those of us who walk this life and sometimes need to be reminded of things along the way. And so, yeah, I know, right? Duck out of the way, not me. Yeah. And so I thought I would just kind of start with something that seems silly, but I didn't realize was kind of not obvious, which is if you are someone who is getting, maybe new to this and you're kind of getting spiritual messages coming in, I call them downloads for whatever reason, but I guess because it feels like that. I watched The Matrix too many times. But if you're getting downloads and it's not an appropriate time or situation for you to be getting that full message, it is okay to say, not right now. And you can say this, out loud, verbally, in your head, whatever is comfortable for you. I've been known to say it out of frustration sometimes, like, yeah, I can't right now. Please come back later. I appreciate you, but come back later. And just acknowledging that. And that will usually kind of shut it down. I mean, it's not always the case, obviously, and everybody's going to have their own different experiences. But it's kind of like that reminder to realize that your thoughts and your words have power and you need to use them. Sometimes we forget and we sit there and we wallow in it and kind of like ask ourselves questions like, why are you doing this to me right now? Or whatever. Reform that and do it in a more strategic manner for yourself, where you're actually being intentional about what it is that you're, trying to get or say. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there right at the beginning, mostly for me not wanting to forget that part of it, because I think it's something that a lot of people kind of miss when we talk about how to connect and all these different things, and then nobody says how to shut it down.
Yeah.
So how do messages come through for you? And what was like, I guess, what's the journey been like for you in terms of like, when did you notice it first? When did you really dive into it and kind of allow it to start happening? And let's just talk about that concept of spirituality and how it's coming through and manifesting, and how you're being intentional about it now. And either one of you can jump in, whoever's feeling like it.
Honestly, I can't tell you. I don't remember, when I started listening, but I know that when I started listening, that things got easier for me. I do also, and depending on your belief system, which is whatever, we have the spirit and then we have the spirits trying to contact you. And that has opened up way a lot more recently for me. And like recently, my brother, who had passed away 2 years ago, was trying to get a hold of me. And I was like, I don't have time. I've got stuff I need to do. I don't have time. And then he became much more insistent. And he was a Scorpio. And when he was in this incarnation, then he kept sending me scorpions to the point that I stepped on one, didn't get stung. But I stepped on one. I thought it was dead. And when I put it in the dustpan, it was not dead. And so I finally was like, what the fuck do you want? Excuse my French. So I sat down with him and for a week we conversed. But to me, when I'm doing with spirit, like it's like channeling, I have to sit down, I have to put it in the journal, I have to write it out. It's 45 minutes to an hour. and so that just means that something else that I had planned was, so again, I had to, and he showed up at several different places that were for women only. And I was like, not now. You can't be here now. I will talk to you later. So again, if you're having that kind of experience, you can, but you also have to make time because some of them can be very insistent, and even spirit can. I mean, there's only been a couple of times that I have audibly heard my angels, but that was because I was in danger. I mean, literally heard turn around now. And you get that in your head. You're like, okay, 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 because you're just going along your merry way, having a good time, and they're giving you little hints. So, and it wasn't, again, like, to me, the spirit messages is all, it's connected with that intuition. That's how it's talking to you. And to me, it's not a fear thing. When that voice I heard, it was just insistent. It wasn't a scream, it was just insistent. And I find that, like, the messages I receive from spirit or from my intuition, there's no emotion attached to it. It's just matter of factly. Okay. So again, that's how I know that spirit is. And then, yeah, there's just some ways, like, I don't have the energy for you today. But then again, they will, if there's something important coming that you need to know that will help your life go smoother, you do have to try to find that space. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I love having these conversations like all the time with everybody because there's some consistencies throughout, but like I just love all the different ways that people are experiencing how spirit is coming through for them. Like I said, there are some similarities that you get, but um, and and it changes. At least for me, it changes like over time. You get more awareness and things like that too. But I think when you allow yourself to open up, then that's when you really see things manifest in different ways. I laughed a little bit when you said, it's very matter of fact for, your messages that come through. I get all sorts of stuff that comes through with mine. And my spiritual team has some fun with me. I'm going to just throw that out there right now. And that was interesting to kind of come into. And I have always wondered, like, is it that way because that's how we need to hear it? Like, do they come through in a way that makes sense for us? Like, okay, they weren't listening or they weren't responding when we did it this way, so let's modify it and do it this way. Or is it us picking up what they're throwing down, and what those things are? Because I've had conversations, with people who have passed that I know. So, I get some emotion that comes through there, but it's not even emotion so much for me as it is like a style, I guess, or an intent. I don't know. It's interesting, for me as it comes in. But also, like you said, for you, like, you need that 45 minutes to sit. And I have trouble sometimes shutting it off. Like, I had to spend a really long time with learning how to, put up my own walls and, being able to kind of like shut things down because I'm very open and receptive to things. And some things I didn't even realize at the beginning, was an attempt to communicate. And so, like, it's just a interesting dynamic. And so, yeah, and so I would say if you're somebody that is like looking for, like, is first of all, if you're questioning, is this, then 9 out of 10 times, yes, it is. If you're thinking, hey, this might be, or whatever, just accept that it is and keep moving forward. And as you do that, more will open, you'll become more comfortable, you become more familiar with things, and you will develop your own way of doing things and, the way things happen. And you'll adopt things from other people too as you do it. Like, Christina's actually a good example of that, because I also spirit speak, and she was the first one to to say it in a way that I was like, wait, that's what I do. I was just like, okay, I'm using that terminology now because because it resonated. Because sometimes when I'm talking, I'm just like, oh, that one wasn't, that one wasn't me. And sometimes I'm like, what did I say? Because I have no idea what I just said. And I need for someone to tell me because it just came through. Sometimes I hear it when it comes coming out of my mouth, and sometimes I don't. But so yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic. I think we all have like different ways to connect, and then just different things that we do to block it out. Yeah.
Yeah, the spirit speak was definitely it made a lot of sense. It was very hard to describe what it is that I went through, and actually my friend Jillian is the one who actually named it spirit speak. And it was like, no, it's a thing. Like that's like we're going to call it this. We're going to make it an entity. We're going to make it a thing, and clearly it is translated because it is passing down. Like it makes my heart like so warm that you use that, because it does. It makes sense, and it happens to me. Like I will do readings for people. Like whenever I do readings, they're always recorded. Even if the person doesn't want it, it's we'll delete it because I'm not going to remember what I told you. And it gets intense. It gets like my readings now have gotten to the point where like there's a lot of rocking involved. I have to hold my pendulum and swing it when I'm doing it. It's gotten very, very intense. But recognizing that when you're younger is a very hard thing to do, or just recognizing it, like not just physically young, but young, say, to a spiritual practice, and feeling the difference, like Shannon Brown said, the difference between spirit and like spirits, things like that. So me personally, I'm not a medium in that aspect to where I've talked to people who have passed away, but I've talked to spirits galore. And finding out that's your role as a shaman is you're supposed to interact with the spirits, like everything is a spirit, everything. So I've gotten visions. I have like seer abilities and stuff. But trying to understand that when you're first in getting into a spiritual practice, and especially when I was a young child, like I thought I was like schizo. Like it was just, I thought I legit, like maybe it's schizophrenia, maybe I'm having seizures, maybe I'm having all these other things. Your mind doubts what's going on in your body because of societal norms. It's like, no, I checked out, I'm fine. It's just, I'm being told whenever these things happen to me when I was a kid, you don't say that. You don't do those things. It takes a toll on you when you grow up. But regardless, so understanding what it is, because it's not like it entirely stopped. So when you're not comfortable with it, you're not understanding it, it seems more scary as you grow. So the way actually that I can understand it and uphold boundaries is actually really by opening up completely and establishing a relationship the way you would a friendship. So in the all the Paco stuff that I'm learning, all of that stuff, their way of communicating, like what they're teaching with me with spirits, is through voice, because your voice comes from within your body, and it's on breath, because breath is sacred. Breath is when you're born, you breathe it in. That's the first thing you do, is you breathe in a gulp of air, and when you die, it leaves. So that's where they believe the soul resides, is the in and out of the breath. So they speak. You have to speak. It's not a mind's eye kind of practice. I do personally like the mind's eye kind of thing. I'm not always a voice person, especially when you're out in public, at an orchard, and you got to do a little ceremony because you feel the orchard's very angry that everybody's taking advantage and not saying thank you. So, you got to be kind of quiet when you're giving an offering and burying things in the dirt with a bunch of people staring at you. But anyway, so I will speak to them. And a good way to do it is to actually introduce myself. So again, same way as you would do a friend, be like, hey, I'm Christina. What's your name? I will introduce myself. I will ask them their names or interactions. I will state my intention for this interaction, saying like, okay, I feel like you're coming through to me. I'm open and available now. What do you have to say? How are we going to make this interaction? And then if you do this on the regular, in moments where you do have time, saying like, hey, I am open to hearing all of you. I have an opportune moment. It's like making office hours pretty much.
Yeah.
You set boundaries in a relationship, in a friendship. Be like, hey, yeah, I'm at work from this time to this time. I'll text you later. Establish that same kind of relationship, because you get to know them and they get to know you. And then you can establish the time on when you're available for them to come through, and they get familiar with you as well. Yes, there are times that doesn't even work at all. Things are going to come through whether you like it or not. So being okay with that, saying, like, at first you could say, hey, look, this really, really isn't the time. Say it, state it, firm it, make your stance. Be like, hey, we're pushing boundaries a little bit here. This better be important. And if it's still going to come through, it's still going to come through. And also having a good community around you that recognizes when these moments happen for your support does help. Like, my husband is very big support in this. He recognizes now when I'm going into that state before even I do. We were actually we're having work done in our home, and the contractors found a foundation under this house's foundation.
Wow.
That dated about 1900 to 1910, because that was the only time they did the slate ones in this area. And when they pulled the bricks down and they found the old foundation underneath with all the dirt and all the stuff on it, I was looking at all the dirt that's fallen and stuff. It's, this house was built in 1942, so nobody's been in there since that time. And I saw like all these black marks and stuff in the dirt, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And it just started happening. Now I'm in a room full of contractors and guys like this. This is not normal for them. So I'm like, I'm getting a download. I'm getting a message now. Like, spirit is strongly coming in at this moment and be like, I have to show you something. My husband, I was laughing. I was saying, he's like, like you'll get the service dogs that like know when their owners are. That's what he did. He was just fully aware of what happened, of going on. He's like, uh-oh. He's like, hey, Bill, why don't we go over here? I have a question about this here. And he got them out of the basement. Wow. So it can allow everything to come through. So I don't look like some crazy person just staring into the void that's in front of me. So I actually got this vision of 3 guys walking up to what was left of a building that burned down. And like, it's not like anybody was in the building or anything of that sort. It was, they just walked up and went, oh, what happened? Like, it burnt down over the weekend when they were away. And I'm like, I don't know why I got that. I don't know if the black is making me think that. Like, this house here did have a fire in it, like the 60s and 70s. I'm like, maybe it's tying into that, but this house didn't burn down. I was like, it wasn't that, it wasn't that. But literally, they just 3 of them walked over like, oh, come on. Like, when the hell did that happen? And when they actually started the work here and they started to dig into the house a month later, because what they're doing is they're excavating the dirt under the house from the inside out, because our house sits on that dirt and it's causing moisture problems, sinking problems, bug problems. You need to get the house off the dirt. It's degrading it. They dug 4 feet down to put in supports, and they found a ton of burnt wood and melted glass.
Wow.
So the previous, the owners, the contractor comes over. He's like, yeah, the old foundation that was here, that building burnt down. And I just like froze, and I'm like, oh God, I'm not crazy. I'm actually so. You can't confirm whether it was 3 dudes that walked up and went all that, but the fire was so hot it melted the glass windows, because they found like melted, molded pieces of it, like just craziness. So sometimes it's important, because now I know with this house, so the house before it had a fire that burnt it down. This house had a fire, which we're figuring out where it came from now, doing this recent work. It was like 60s, 70s. Now that I understand that this house actually needs fire, or it makes fire happen. And look at the family that moved into it. I'm the only one who's not fire. You have an Aries. My husband's an Aries. My daughter is an Aries. My son is actually only not an Aries, because if he was born 2 hours earlier, he would have been. He's that close on the cusp. But like, you had the fire family, and I'm obsessed with fire. You had the fire family. And one of the first things we did the day we moved in is that we made a fire pit, so we can have a big fire in the backyard. This house needs fire, or it makes fire happen. And fire is our creativity and our passion and our soul. So this house needs to be full of things of fire, not just the element itself. So I don't know if that answered the question of things, but it's like sometimes when those things really do need to come through, like Shannon Brown's, where it's like you need to turn around. Like, bitch, turn around. You're in trouble. Like, you need to do it. You can allow those things, those things are going to come through. You're not going to stop everything. But that's the privilege of being a spiritual being, of opening that part of you, is you get that connectivity. So why not establish relationships with spirit and spirits of everything as a friendship?
I love that.
Beautiful.
I love that you the whole office hours analogy. I'd never thought about it like that, but that is so true. Like and I've also never done the like, hi, I'm Shannon, what's your name? And that seems so obvious to me now that I'm like, why have I not been doing that? I have asked the question, like, yeah, like I have asked the question, but I've not treated it as simplistic as, this is a relationship, that you're having with, and I love that. And
I told you, all the Paco stuff is so simple. It's so simple yet so profound. Like, I'm just over the moon. I can't wait till classes start again in December for my next module. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. The simplicity of just the concepts of just, even with what we're talking about right here, like just allowing the awareness to open up and for you to accept that, yes, you are having this conversation. The simplicity of Ken just saying, you know what, I need to go show you something over here, and understanding, like you said, being in that safe space where he understood, okay, something is happening right now. I need to allow that, and and take the other people out of, that situation. And that comes from years of trust, so if you're in this space and you're just kind of coming into it, it can be scary sometimes to open up and share that, but I go back to that words of power, concept where you can't fully own what you are, what you're doing, who you are, and like all of the ways things are happening to you unless you fully own it. So just being able to accept that that is what's happening. You mentioned too, I just wanted to touch on, you mentioned that the different ways that it can come in and can manifest. You can physically see, you can have it, things happen in your head, you can hear, you can smell things, you can just know that things are there, which as a concept seems really odd. Like, what do you mean you just know? Like, how do you just know? And as somebody who just knows, and like then the things will happen and I'll be like, like, or you'll find something out. Like, it's odd to think about it, but like when you just know, like you're just that sure of the thing. And so if that's happening to you, just say yes and go with it, right? And just move past that. And community is so important. If you are someone who is surrounded by people who are not awakening to this, because that's another aspect, because we are humans walking in this human existence, living these lives that maybe aren't necessarily fully what we're walking into. It's really important to find those people and those communities that will support you as you grow into this person that you are becoming. And there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of gatekeeping out there. And, so just find places that you feel comfortable, whether it's one of ours or somewhere else, just wherever you feel comfortable. Listen to yourself. If you're feeling good in that space, then great. If you're not, maybe keep looking. And just because you're in one doesn't mean you can't be in 10. Right? Like, just find the spaces where you feel comfortable and where you belong. Yeah. And I guess I'll just reiterate too, the boundaries are there for you.
Yes.
Right? They're there to keep you and you safe, sanity-wise, everything. And you have the power in that scenario. So yes, there are things that are going to come through no matter what, but you have the power to say the things, do the things. And most magic works just like that. Just by saying the thing, writing the thing down. It's all intention. Do you have to use a white candle for this? No. Can you just have the intention that you are using a white candle? Yes.
Speaking of boundaries.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So yeah, just let them know. It is a communication. And I think that's the key area too. Like, yes, I do want to communicate with you. I know you have something important to say, but I'm living a human life and I've got these things going on. I promise. And then if you promise, make sure you follow through. I think that's the big thing, because they'll keep knocking.
Yeah. And have gratitude for the interaction.
Yes.
Can you remember? Yeah. You're in two different worlds. Yeah. They're living in one dimension. We're living in another dimension. You got to polarize it as much as possible. Yeah. They're not going to understand your boundaries. They're not living a human life, and you're not going to understand theirs because they're not, we're not living an ethereal kind of life. So have gratitude that the interaction was able to happen to begin with too. That will help establish the friendship with them.
And on that note, perfection. Shannon, where can people find you on the interwebs?
BringJoyForward.com. You can get my information from there. Yep.
And Christina?
And you can find me in the Bring Joy Forward community groups, and you can find me at sacredtemplewellness.com.
Perfect. And you can get all my information on the Bring Joy Forward page as well. Get all their information in the directory, and come on and join us in community. We appreciate you so much for being here and listening to us and holding space for us as we hold space for you. You have been listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us at bringjoyforward.com, and we'd love to have you join us in our community Facebook group. Thank you for listening.